Hello and welcome to Friday Special. I'm Farhan Patafi. Unlike other programs in this show, we try to address the deeper questions and issues that actually affect all our lives. And one such issue is water. We didn't have water policy for quite some time. We recently have seen that there is a water policy, but umpteen other things still need to be done. And today we are going to talk about water policy, water disputes, because Indus Water Basin Treaty and so many other issues are there that keep on affecting our lives. And unfortunately, so far, the approach or response hasn't been that holistic, that institutional. We have seen various governments come and go, and we have seen, so many governments come and go in neighborhood as well. And now we have seen that Narendra Modi, umpteen other people of that sort, keep on suggesting that somehow Indus Water Treaty has to be abolished. Pakistan is a lower riparian country, and it is quite prone to such cancellation. We are today going to talk about as many things as possible regarding water, and we are going to ask our guests how to improve the quality of water diplomacy and water management in this country. And we are going to see why has it been so that we haven't had a coherent policy until recently. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by experts who know their subject and who are here to enlighten us. We have with us Ms. Dena Marshall. She is an expert from the US, teaches at, is from actually Oregon, USA, and her expertise is in water diplomacy. Thank you very much for joining us, Dena. And next to her is Professor Dr. Anis Ahmed, Vice Chancellor of Rifa University. Needs no introduction, has appeared on this channel repeatedly and in many of my programs as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed Sheikh Saab, who is an expert on water, and he is Director General, Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for your time as well. Dena Marshall, I have to ask you about water accords and water diplomacy. Have you studied Pakistan's special, context as well?
A little bit, I have.
Yeah. Yes. Do you think that what we do in water diplomacy can be improved, and the region can learn from the, progress in water diplomacy as well?
You know, the Indus, if you're referring to the Indus Waters Treaty,
yeah.
The Indus Waters Treaty is considered to be one of the strongest treaties, transboundary water treaties in the world, compared to also the Columbia River Treaty review, the Columbia River Treaty between the United States and Canada that's happening in my neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. And so the two are considered to be some of the strongest treaties in the world. And in some regards, the Indus Waters Treaty is considered to be even stronger than Columbia River Treaty, for the very fact that the two countries have managed to maintain dialogue over the years, over decades and decades.
Yeah, but people call it dialogue of the deaf. They say something we don't hear, we say something they don't hear. So how do you actually break that kind of bottlenecks?
I think dialogue is a process, and it takes time, as we've seen, generations of leadership and generations of trying over and over again.
Yeah, but recently we had a very interesting episode where you realized that the province of Punjab is divided between India and Pakistan. We have our Punjab and they have theirs. And we had news that India is taking out so much water from their part of Punjab that our water table is going down. So what do you do on that issue if one has that kind of problem?
You know, groundwater is an emerging issue on the global scale, and we're looking at groundwater issues in every basin around the world. In the Columbia as well, in an area that I've studied quite closely, a groundwater issue persists between the countries of Chile and Bolivia over the waters of the Salala. Right. So this is an area, I think, where there's a lot of room for exchange of knowledge, joint data collection, gathering information where we don't have enough.
And I'm going to come back to you regarding
Sure.
data collection because we have a problem in that context as well. But Dr. Anis, given that the population of this country has increased manifold over past decades, and we have recently seen the result of the recent census as well, the question now is how to educate people and how to come up with a very judicious, water distribution mechanism. Do you have any framework in mind?
Thank you very much. First of all, personally, I believe that population phobia is something serious to be explored.
Okay.
I do not believe that someone who made this whole universe, knowing the growth of population, kind of people expect to live here, will plan a way that after a few millenniums you have water shortage. I think it's our problem. Our problem is not lack of resources, but mismanagement. Secondly, our problem is that we don't look on issues from a socio-cultural viewpoint. Quite often we look from legal viewpoint. And there too, we want to score points. Diplomacy is not a matter of defeating the other person, but winning the person.
Okay.
And we don't know that. Unfortunately, we have no idea about how human mind works.
Okay.
We may not like it.
We as a country don't have the idea?
No, I think it's a global phenomenon.
Okay.
We think every human being is very kind, polite, sacrificing, while selfishness, self-centeredness, this is my water, this is my land, this is my automobile, this is my country. We don't look on issues globally.
Right.
What's required is to change our complete mindset, to look on issues not that India is my enemy or Pakistan is my friend, but a matter of how, if these two countries, instead of treating each other as enemy, look, if both act in the benefit of their people,
Right, sir.
then they will have a new kind of balance of power.
Right. Dr. Zab, so far we are talking about international issues, right? India and Pakistan. Let us talk about the internal distribution mechanism. Pakistan has federating units. There has been a concern internally as well that there is a judicious policy or there isn't.
I fully understand that.
So how do you resolve that?
Again the problem is lack of dialogue, lack of confidence building.
And lack of imagination, sir?
Sure. You see, a province which has been saying don't build dam in our territories because others will benefit from it, is foolishness. They should look on the whole country. But we should be able to convince them and tell them, look, these are the benefits you will draw from it.
Are you referring to Kalabagh Dam?
Definitely.
And are you referring to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province?
I'm not
Because there is a
accusing
concern
anyone.
there.
I'm not accusing anyone. I'm saying
Sir.
in general,
Right.
the reason for failure is our own lack of dealing with the problem.
That is true, sir. But regarding Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's
Yes.
position, the most interesting thing is they say that if you build the, dam here, the historic flooding of Nowshera actually increases, and that causes a lot of problem. It is believed that there have been
I think
solutions regarding that as well, and
we
I'm
have
going
enough
to.
technology
Sir.
to control that phenomena.
Okay.
We are not living in stone age.
Right.
We can very well work out solutions for that.
And these are only concerns of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are concerns by Sindh province as well. But Dr. Saab, let us talk about agrarian economy and how we haven't been able to properly utilize water for agriculture. One day there is flooding in the country. The second day we hear that now we are heading towards a drought. Why is it that we haven't been able to build the kind of water reservoirs that were needed? And why is it, as Dr. Saab has just pointed out, why we lack internal dialogue?
I will add what Dr. Anis has referred. It's a matter of confidence building, trust building amongst all stakeholders, I would say. Rather, we should not blame at provincial level, but at grassroots level,
Right.
where the masses should be educated.
So
They
that-
should be made aware.
Right.
About
That point is made, sir. But humbly, 70 years in existence, and we are saying that we have to do it. That means we haven't done it already.
They were one hitch was this national water policy, which we have got it there. No matter there are still concerns about within this policy regarding the dams you are referring to, because but only what they have agreed in this policy that there should be additional storages, not in terms of dams. They have not agreed that straight away. They will go for building more dams. So they are afraid. So confidence building, trust building, or just trust deficit kind of things are still there.
Why exactly?
No matter we have policy over there.
Why?
I mean, effort have not been made to the extent the way it should be. We should bring all stakeholders together on one table.
70 years,
That's the reason.
this hasn't happened. What convinces you that now it is going to change?
No, but as a professional, I feel we have not brought all stakeholders together on one table.
Okay.
There were separate discussions amongst the politicians. There were separate amongst the professionals, but not on one table.
Yeah, but
We should
here's the concern. Since I've been working on this issue for quite some time, I've heard from Sindh province as well, and they say that if you don't release this amount of water into Kotri downstream, there is a possibility of alluvial, reverse of water, and it can actually affect alluvial flooding. So how do you actually take care of that? And they have feared that Kalabagh Dam is going to affect that.
No, actually dams play a role where you can manage your flows downstream.
Okay.
So that's the gap. Nobody have tried to convince on technical lines, on technical grounds, how those dams will support having enough flows downstream, which are of course required. 10 MAF is used to be said that after all consultation.
Can I add a footnote?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Sir.
Agrarian policy.
So you can add a chapter.
No, I don't want to take that much time.
Yeah.
The agriculture policy depends on scientific study. And I don't think in this country, neither the farmers nor policy planners have ever thought, are we giving appropriate amount of water to our agricultural produce or more?
Right.
Actually, we are giving more, wasting it.
Okay.
A scientific study will tell us that less water will make better produce.
Okay.
Secondly, there is a lack of political will. Thirdly, the issue of dams does not have to be linked all with a mega dam, but you can have a small dams where you have no problems at all of flooding
That is true, sir.
and
But
other areas.
a country that has raised the level of many mega dams already, the issue of silting and desilting becomes serious. And when you talk about small reservoirs, that is one concern, that it will be very quickly choked.
It's a matter of management. If you are not managing dams, they must have silt.
Okay.
Managing means you use technology.
All right.
And only then you can work.
Right. Ms. Marshall, let us talk about upper riparians and lower riparians. And I am talking not only internationally, internally as well. How do you manage the gap of this sort when there are concerns? Regarding Indus Water Treaty, India and Pakistan have concerns and they have to be addressed. But allow me, I just have to take a quick break. Viewers, don't go away. We'll come back and resume the program in no time. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were talking about water diplomacy and water policy. We are joined by Ms. Dena Marshall, and I'm going to come back to you and ask you about, resolving disputes between upper riparians and lower riparians. And keep in mind, not only internationally, but internally in a country as well, especially when you talk about Pakistan's federating units. Do you have any picture in mind?
This is a question that we run into in every water course. And it comes back to Dr. Sheikh's comments on stakeholder engagement. Number one, to be able to identify who the stakeholders are along the water course, and not just the visible stakeholders, but also the invisible stakeholders, the ones who are not physically in the room or at the table. And very often that can be a stakeholder, maybe that's not even a person sometimes, perhaps even the environment or children or an endangered species of wildlife that lives in the area, that has an interest in the decisions that will be impacted by the decisions that are being made. And to be able to have that conversation with all of the stakeholders and keeping all of the stakeholders in mind is fundamental, and also brings up opportunities for collaborative actions.
Yeah, but you're saying as if there is one person who's going to help everybody reconcile, right? No. What happens when everybody is a party? Like internally, federal government is a party. India, Pakistan, both sides are parties.
Right.
So who actually sits there, who is trusted enough to resolve these issues?
That's exactly the process that we talk about. This is our consensus building processes, where it's sort of mediation on the grand scale. Many stakeholders are involved. Many people are in the room, all representing various interests.
And who's going to be the mediator?
Well, the selection of a mediator is a joint decision.
Okay. And do you have any experiences in mind in resolving those issues where two parties or more than two parties have agreed to one mediator and it has worked?
Of course. This is a growing area of practice in the United States. This is actually my particular area of practice is consensus building, and we call it public policy facilitation. Very often a mediator or somebody trained in mediation or facilitation skills will be invited in on maybe a contract basis, who's been vetted and agreed to by all parties to facilitate a series of discussions among all stakeholders involved over a long course of time, with the objective in mind to reach a certain number of agreements. Some agreements can be as simple as agreeing to some fundamental facts, such as where the boundary line physically runs.
Right. Those concerns can be taken care of by that method. Dr. Saab, earlier you were talking about lack of leadership and lack of political consensus as well. How do you build that kind of leadership where actually these concerns can be addressed quickly? Because whether we have the resources or not, we have dearth of vision or foresight. That's why we haven't been able to resolve these issues so far.
I believe in two-pronged approach. One is the conventional long-term educational process.
Right.
And in that, universities, academia has to play a basic role. That you produce young minds who are inquisitive, critical, forward-looking, not depressed. Second, an ongoing academic dialogue. So based on evidence, we in academia, we provide these so-called leaders material to think, keep on hammering that they have to move and do certain things. And in this way, the public opinion ultimately prevails. No political figures can ever resist the pressure coming from masses. And therefore, I think these two approaches, the long-term academic program where we can have in our syllabi necessary modifications to create awareness about water, use of water. At the same time, research programs that lead to solution for local problems. You mentioned salinity and other issues. Those are very easily solved problems by the experts. So I think we have to work together. Unfortunately, we have developed a blame game where people just blame everything on politicians or on external stakeholders. I think we as people in Pakistan, we have enormous responsibility, and academia has to play its role particularly in awareness as well as building the future cadre of leaders who are aware of these issues and who have a desire to solve the problems, not defer them.
Dr. Does it surprise you that in a country that has so many water concerns, you don't see this kind of discussions in mainstream Urdu television channels or newspapers usually?
Yeah, it surprises me and also saddens me because we take non-issues more seriously.
Right.
And basic issues, it's not only water, it's health, it's environment,
Even economy.
it's family. I don't know how much you are aware of. We are going through a very serious family crisis in the country. And what you see every day is a matter of family disputes developing. And no concept of mediation, no concept of reconciliation. And the whole environment and economic problems. We only hear the existing government or the former government could do following things statistically. And that too is a game of letters and figures,
Right.
not exact.
Yeah, but
shape.
usually we are not doing well in numbers either.
Yes.
When you seek out the relevant numbers, usually it happens that they are 5, 6 years old, and we don't get latest data, and that is also a concern. But Dr. Sheikh, let us talk about the leadership that inspires people not to waste water, and then some follow-up on how water is lost in Pakistan. And I'm talking about not only I as a consumer wasting water, but also because of the systemic weaknesses in distribution system, where we haven't been able to preserve the kind of water we needed. Do you think that we can have that leadership, we can have that kind of discourse, and we can have that kind of policy that takes care of these issues?
Yeah, I mean, need both ways. On one hand, such techniques, such technologies which would help conserving or applying water more judiciously, those should be introduced, should be brought on the front line, and then guiding our leadership, our politicians, our legislators, to help taking such decisions. I mean, very harsh decisions sometimes, I would say. For example, at this moment, our irrigation system, which we believe is one of the best in the world, but still it has.
It still is one of the best, sir? Or used to be 70
it
years ago?
used to be, we can say, but still it's helping because it's delivering water up to 18 million hectares.
Yeah.
Huge network of canals and barrages.
And how much is lost, sir?
Loss is up to, we can say, safely 48 million acre feet.
Can you put it in terms of percentage?
Percentage, nearly, you can say 40%.
40% is
System
lost.
efficient is, system is 40% efficient.
60% is lost.
60% losses.
Wow.
You can understand how much we are losing. If we
Then I wouldn't call it one of the best systems in the world.
I will give you one
or
example of that. For example, as Anissa mentioned, judicious use of water. For rice, you have seen we are growing in standing water.
Okay.
But in actual terms, it needs only 600 millimeter to 1400 millimeter if we go down to the Indus. Whereas farmers are applying up to 5000 millimeter.
Right, right.
And same with banana in Sindh. Requirement is up to 2000 millimeter, and they are applying more than 5.
So who is supposed to educate the farmers and all the stakeholders that water should not be wasted, it should be used efficiently?
I earlier mentioned that we need to take a harsh decision. System is supply based. It should be demand based.
Okay.
Where it's needed, how much it needed.
Yeah, but remember that there used to be water turns in agriculture when you're going to get your turn for irrigation. And in those days, we used to have fights between tribes, and we used to have murders. So how do you resolve such kind of disputes?
Those can be resolved. For example, whoever needs more water, they can withdraw according to their needs. There are gadgets.
The idea of water markets. Can that work?
And proper pricing.
Okay.
At this moment, whatever they are paying, it's nothing. I mean,
yeah, but somebody will have to actually wake up for that. Do you think anybody is awake at this moment?
Several voices are there from the expert side, professional side, but leadership should take.
Any recent, regarding the experts, any recent books written on the matter?
Not book, I would say, but at several forums, at several seminars. There are concern amongst the, and even I will refer this book, this latest book on Indus Basin economy running dry.
Right.
So they have put a lot more stress on it.
When I go to a bookshop, I usually scout for various issues. So I didn't find any recent
books that you can find on the website.
On Pakistani issues. It is confined to the website.
Yeah, World Bank.
Okay.
So that's
Dr. Anis is right. Perhaps our experts need to write more, and they have to focus on these matters more. But coming back to these mechanisms to resolve disputes, I mean, can treaties and agreements or accords create such mechanisms that can effectively resolve these issues? Because I tell you, we are in a very rough neighborhood, at least in Pakistan. And I remember before Mumbai, terrorist attack or so-called attack, there was a mechanism of reconciliation on terrorism between India and Pakistan. The moment terrorism takes place, it goes out of the window. And then we are again, confronting each other. So how to create mechanisms that endure, and then they help resolve issues as well?
That's a terrific question. We have, there are over 600 agreements, water agreements on transboundary freshwater resources, and 263 transboundary water basins. And of those, only a handful of river basin organizations have been developed through the agreements, through the treaties. And so when we look at a treaty or an accord on transboundary waters, we analyze the accord or the treaty looking for certain characteristics, the who, the what, the where, the how, and the why. And the what and how, I think, are the most important elements. And what we're finding is that as treaty making progresses through time, we're finding more and more opportunities to develop river basin organizations. So this is starting to take shape. And we're also seeing a very slow development in provisions within the treaties for dispute resolution settlement, resolution. So the Indus Waters Treaty is one fabulous example that's often used as a case study in the foresight that the drafters of the treaty had in the event of a disagreement.
Yeah, but let me highlight a dilemma here. India is not only upper riparian, it is also, when you talk about power, it is more powerful and affluent, party to the entire treaty. And in the recent days or recent years, we have heard Indian Prime Minister saying that they are either going to totally scuttle it, they are going to just walk away from it. And then Pakistan went out and, went to the mediators, World Bank, others. And there comes a time when maybe those mediators cannot follow up or help you out either. So we are just sitting duck then. What happens then?
We're neighbors. Neighbors need to, we find ways to live together and to work together. So it was such, one of the highlights of this agreement is that it has persisted over time and throughout conflicts. Through how many wars have there been between India and Pakistan since 1960? 6 or 7?
No, there are three wars, but interestingly, none of them was officially declared as a war.
Ah, okay.
So you don't have to scuttle the agreements in that.
So even through armed conflict on other issues, riparians have been able, and India and Pakistan have been able to continue to work together on water through the framework of the Indus Waters Treaty and through the dispute resolution mechanism that was established then, working in
Yeah, but
flexibility.
here's the problem. My concern as a weaker party to the equation would be that there is no protection for me if the stronger party walks away from international law, international agreements, because might is right, and then there won't be any reprimand for them, and there won't be any protection for me. Do you think international law somehow provides for that kind of protection? You're a lawyer. You can tell us.
You know, in the case of the Salala, the waters of Salala between Bolivia and Chile, there's currently no treaty between the two countries over the water. And these are two countries that historically have not gotten along very well. And now arguing over a tiny trickle of water that runs through the desert of Bolivia into the desert of Chile. This has become a flashpoint conflict between the two countries. And in the absence of a treaty or an agreement over the water or an agreement over the shared use of the resources, they have presented the case to the International Court of Justice. And so in this example, the International Court of Justice is being called upon as the mediator, the final arbiter of this particular issue. So that's always a resource that's available.
It can work.
I believe so.
Yeah. We have had past experiences where maybe we thought that international law doesn't work for us. It works for the other party. Let us hope in coming days that changes. Dr. Saab, coming back to research and coming back to your university as well, we have seen that you are introducing many subjects like water diplomacy as well. How can other institutions institutionalize research on this level and diversify their portfolios? Because recently what we have seen is similar kind of subjects, hardly any research, hardly that kind of insight into the subject.
We have recently submitted a PC1 in collaboration with Water Research Center for higher research program, and we are working collaboration with Oregon State University. So we are able to bring both international and national research together. I believe that a lot more is to be done, and as a private university, we are using our resources with the best of our efforts, and we hope that within next few years we'll be able to present to nation a viable solution of all these problems.
Right. But do you see similar kind of subjects being taught in other universities,
No, I'm not
particularly
aware
the
of it.
government universities?
I'm not aware of it.
Why not, sir?
Well, you see, normally people go for those subjects which are easily accepted and in the market of today, not of tomorrow.
Okay.
We are not, as you said earlier, we are not very much perceptive people who like to think about 100 years from now.
Yeah.
But water is an issue which I think should be taken very seriously by others, and I don't mind working with other universities as well. I don't believe it's a matter of who has the monopoly. It's a common cause,
Right.
and we must have collaboration.
Right. But regarding what is accepted in the market and what is not, one question. Who is demanded more in today's Pakistan? An MBA or perhaps a water expert who can help the government understand what is going on?
Well, if the state is serious, then definitely there will be programs coming up in those areas.
Yeah,
but as we see, unfortunately our political rules have not been very much serious about major issues, but about their own stay in power.
Right.
And therefore, things are shelved. I believe
when we talk to the rulers, they usually say that these are these are things that are repeated, that we want to stay in power. Of course, politics is like that, but we are doing whatever we can. Coming back to the supply and demand issue, don't you think that in this market where you have saturation of degrees that we are churning out already, new degrees, new programs will have more chance of survival?
Definitely, I agree with you.
Right. So in demand side, that
Sure.
issue is addressed
Sure.
as well. But Dr. Sheikh, regarding water scarcity and the issue of safe drinking water, wastage is there, In water policy, it has been agreed that people will be educated, informed how to actually preserve water. And I've seen personally a couple of ads on television as well, where they tell you that while you're shaving or while you're brushing, at that time, so much water is wasted, you just have to turn off the tap. How can we build a coherent policy regarding safe drinking water and this kind of laws?
At this moment, they are separate policy. Drinking water policy is separate,
Yeah.
and national water policy has come up. But we need integrated kind of policy where climate change should be dubbed in, then forest policy and
Integrated
wetlands.
and nuanced as well?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
because you have to address all the
Definitely.
sections.
And,
in
and
that.
then there should be implementation strategy as well. It's not policy is not enough. Until and unless we have a implementation strategy for that and then implementation program for that, we can't succeed in achieving the required target. For example, wastage, you are saying we are promoting on this domestic side. Domestic side contributing only 3 or 4% of overall water use, but major losses are on agriculture side.
Okay.
Where we do need value addition.
Yeah, but sir, just explain to me. You're an expert, one of the few experts in this country. And we have a parliament, we have standing committees as well. How often has it happened that you are called to a standing committee or a cabinet committee to help them understand what is going on and how to improve things?
We have done recently. We met center. There is center group forum where we presented all such recommendations, and it next up to them how.
No, but you're talking about your advocacy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about lawmakers' literacy of the subject.
You are right, but I think it should be from both sides. We should not wait for that.
Yeah.
They should invite
So
us.
there's a push, and there will be a pull as well one day.
This national water policy, which we have been successful in getting it through. Lot more stress from various sides.
Right.
Seminars, workshops, and engagements with the politicians, with the professionals at all levels. It is solution is
but
there.
when you've been doing a thing for quite some time, it sort of becomes a ritual.
Yeah.
I've attended many seminars, but when you talk about policy debates, when you talk about parliamentary debates or television debates, I don't see that kind of discussion taking place in the country.
True.
And one fears that maybe we have, fallen into the pattern where we keep on repeating the cycle. It is a vicious cycle. Sir, I have other questions, but I'm going to take a small break. When we come back, we are going to resume the discussion, and we are going to talk about water diplomacy and water policy further in this program. Take a break. Welcome back. Before we went to the break, we were talking about water policy, water conservation, and water diplomacy as well. And the questions during the break have been piling on for Dr. Sheikh. There are two very important questions that I'm going to ask. One was safe drinking water. I'm going to add to it, the quality of water. We are told that there is a very huge possibility of contamination, and that it contributes to health issues all over the country. Dr. Saab, how do we take it into cognizance while making policy? And is there a way to ensure that the growing, actually exploding population of this country can actually have safe drinking water and high quality?
You are right. Let me share the statistics on it. On average, more than 70% water being supplied is not fit for drinking. And mostly it's due to bacterial contamination and less from other contaminants. So
this is an assessment or a fact?
this is fact. This is monitored throughout, and since our organization is monitoring since 2002, and we have not, at that time it was 100%, but over the period of time, some improvements.
If the threat is so big, why is it that it is not number one talking point in policy level dialogues?
I used to say some harsh facts on it. Water was not taken so seriously in the past.
Okay.
That's a fact. That's why we have seen that the policy have taken more than 20 years getting
In
through.
the making.
In the making, and
Let's hope it doesn't take another 20 to implement.
to implement it. That's true. So that's why I'm stressing that there should be implementation policy on it, and then strategy as well. So it needs not much investment, I would say, because bacterial contamination is a major issue, and if we enforce our environmental laws so that this wastewater should not be dumped into the natural water bodies.
Right.
And then industrial waste effluent should not be disposed of. For example, at this moment, it's being disposed of directly into the water bodies.
That is quite important, sir. But with due respect, what do you do where you already have that kind of process going on? For example, Lahore's Nahar, right? You have housing communities, and they have existed there for quite some time without that kind of sewerage system. And the sewage actually is dumped here.
Dumped into the even Ravi.
Yeah.
It's getting all effluent from the Lahore city and going downstream. And
so what do you do? Uproot the population or find another way?
No, it's just, I mean, if we should plan differently, instead of looking for a centralized treatment system, we should go for decentralized units where industrial sectors can be treated at their own level, because industrial effluents are hardly contributing 5 to 10% of the overall wastewater, which is nearly 5 to 6 million acre feet at this moment. Huge source, non-conventional source, which we can take as for reuse after primary or tertiary treatment.
Okay.
With low-cost treatment, I mean, bioremediation can help in treating our waste, and we can use for horticulture, or grey water can be used.
When you say low cost, do you have any numbers in mind? How much will it cost the state of Pakistan to come up with such a policy?
In terms of dollars, you are saying?
It can be rupees, dollars?
I mean, if for example, if investment for is we are going for 10 billion, so it would be hardly 1 billion or so.
1 billion
if
rupees.
we go for bioremediation.
Okay.
So, for example, our peri-urban areas where we have enough land available, we can construct bioremediation units there, wetlands over there, which can safely treat, and we can use water.
Right.
It's happening
only
in Islamabad
1
at this
billion
moment.
rupees, sir.
Yeah.
1 billion rupees, just.
I mean,
it's not a big number for the state of Pakistan if they want.
I'm saying in terms of ratio, but overall investment, if we say it may go for maybe for treatment 10 billion or so, but if we go for low cost treatment over major cities.
Ms. Marshall, that actually brings us to the issue of climate change. Because when Indus Water Treaty was written in those days, maybe we didn't have that kind of information, that kind of research on climate change. Now we do. And mind you that India and Pakistan are already polluting environment when it comes to Siachen, which is one of the highest glaciers where we are fighting. You know, can these documents or these accords be edited in a way where environmental concerns can also be factored in, or we'll have to look forward? We cannot actually look retrospectively.
That is exactly the question, and we are exploring the exact same question in the Columbia River Treaty, in the Columbia River Basin. And what I understand is that it's a very live conversation here in the Indus as well. can we modernize this treaty to match our current conditions for climate change, for environmental considerations, population growth, conditions that were not considered in the 1960s when the treaties were signed.
I'm not going to factor in population
Okay.
increase, because if our population is growing, India's is actually multiplying.
What I understand
Weakens my stance.
what I understand is that that general opinion is that yes, here the treaty has enough built-in flexibility to allow for considerations such as climate change to be factored in, and we're reaching the same kinds of recommendations in the Columbia Basin, that the treaty itself does provide enough flexibility to work in additional agreements and considerations for climate change, endangered species, environmental concerns.
Right. And do you think that there is level of diplomacy already that this can be achieved between India, Pakistan, other countries?
Climate change is impacting all of us.
Yeah.
This is a reality that we all share.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Sure.
there seems to be a lot of denial recently on climate change. We have seen the American president, we have seen umpteen other people also denying, or at least trying to say that their country shouldn't be actually paying the price, others should be. India is one of such countries. Why would they listen to these concerns now?
You're right, there has been a lot of rhetoric around whether or not to address the fact that our environment is changing. Temperature fluctuations are peaking on both ends. We're seeing more and more severe storm events. We have more need to consider flood, more severe storms, changing in climatic conditions all over the world. And depending on how we frame the circumstance, it's happening. There's no doubt about it, it's happening.
Right, and there are people who actually keep on challenging basic data, and they will not be persuaded. But I'm told, Dr. Saab, that we have to start concluding the program. There's one question that I'm going to ask all of you. And the question is about coming up with new water reservoirs and developing new water resources which are socio-economically sustainable as well. Do you have any ideas in mind? How can we work on them, and how can we actually enhance our capacity?
I think it's so obvious. It doesn't have to be a technical person giving opinion on that.
Right.
We have enormous water resource in the country, but we have never tried to look from local viewpoint solution of problems. I think small dams, medium-sized dams are the answer, doable, and will not only help water but also energy sector.
All right. Dr. Sheikh, your take on this? Sustainable, diversification.
We do need enhancement of resources through reservoir development and management at the same time.
Okay.
We can't dissociate development from the management. And for that, I think I will again reiterate myself, more and more engagement at all stakeholder levels.
More and more work as well, sir?
More and more work. I do agree with
Next
that.
time you decide to go for advocacy, make it a book.
We have already done.
No, make it a book rather than merely a seminar or a symposium.
I agree with that. I should.
Right.
We have done one, and I will share soon that report on it.
Have you interacted with media as well, and to educate them, and they have responded?
We have done several times. Several levels.
So do you think that they actually adjust this issue in their daily programming?
To some extent, but it should be taken more and more to highlight, and where we should engage our politicians and professionals on one table, and then beneficiaries.
And this initiative should be coming from the state, because without that there won't be that kind of power behind it to convince everybody that it has to be done. Ms. Marshall, your take on enhancing the capacity in a country like Pakistan and also making it sustainable?
I completely agree. I completely agree that we're looking for increased stakeholder engagement from all sectors at all levels, stakeholders that are visible and not visible.
When you say not visible, that actually creates a problem in this country because we already keep on talking about invisible powers, invisible forces. So please, I understand you don't mean them, but there are people who keep on talking about them. So you have to take into cognizance. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So what I mean by stakeholders is that anyone who's impacted by the decisions that are being made. And I mentioned earlier, it could be children, it could be the water itself, the environment. And also just what you mentioned about capacity building at the institutional level, at the educational level, at the professional level, and the leadership level. So we're looking for multi-tiered capacity building in order to build in this increased awareness around the crisis of water, the current circumstances that we're facing with water, data collection, the capacity building on consensus building techniques, dispute resolution, data collection, sharing information, and then carrying that forward through the generation. So it's not just one generation of leadership, but rather being able to pass that knowledge and wisdom from one generation down through the leadership.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. But when you were talking about the things that have to be done, I was just thinking we still have to do so much, and let us hope in coming days that also happens. Ms. Dena Marshall, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Anis Ahmed Saab, always a great pleasure having you in the show. Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed Sheikh Saab, thank you very much for your time as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants, our panel. The water issue is central to our existence. It is a no-brainer. And I think that people should have been paying it the kind of attention that was needed. But if you have listened to our participants, if you have seen this program, you can ask yourself whether it is really happening. And what exactly is it that is stopping us? Is it pure lethargy, lack of imagination, lack of political will, or there is some other problem? Because it is a survival issue. And if we are not paying heed to this matter, then maybe we have some kind of death wish that we keep on, avoiding the issues that are so central to our own existence and survival. Let us hope in coming days we see more engagement by the lawmakers, we have more engagement by the media and the mainstream media as well, and we see the similar kind of engagement by the academe, by other walks of life as well. We will try bringing up this issue as much as possible. We will ensure that we keep on reminding you that these matters have to be actually resolved. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.